What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And today is a very interesting episode. We've got a little bit of variety. We're starting with I Love Arlo, the continuation, Arlo the Alligator Boy. We've got Kid Cosmic Season 2, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, not to be confused with Master of the Universe Revelation. And our Ghibli journey stop this week is Whisper of the Heart. But first, we've got a trailer for something I didn't know I needed until just recently. So Cameron, why don't you describe this trailer that we have?
So the trailer is for a Netflix CGI anime film called Bright Samurai Soul. It's the animated or just spin-off of, it's not a beloved film, the Netflix original Bright, but without any of the baggage that is attached to the live action film, because this is not being worked on by either the original writer or director. It's being directed by Kyohei Ishiguro, who directed Words That Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, which y'all know we very much enjoyed.
Indeed.
It is being written by Michiko Yokote, who worked on a ton of shows and films for like Prison School, Shirobako, Gravitation. Really, that's it. I mean, those are like the biggest things you would know that this writer was attached to. I have to say, I'm actually pretty excited to see this film. It looks like it's taking the core idea of just humans living among mystical races like orcs and elves, but without any of the heavy-handed garbage that was attached to the live action film. It works more as this fun and interesting fantasy action film.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And to be honest, I never even saw the original film. So this is just, I'll be able to enjoy this more on its own merits.
Will Smith was doing his best, and it's just a bad script. And it was already a bad script that got butchered and reworked by the director. And yeah, it was not a good time. It was, to me, one of the worst films of 2017. I just did not like it. It's nice to see this spinoff basically run with the premise what the live action film should have been.
Any opportunity to distance itself from that will be to the benefit of everyone.
Exactly. And with that, that is our one trailer reaction. We did miss on talking about a few others last time, but by the time that podcast was going to come out, the show was going to be out, which was the Chicago Party Ant. And I know we didn't talk about the new My Little Pony movie trailer, but I'll have a review for that ready. And with that, I say let's talk about a show that we were looking forward to, but ended up with mixed emotions.
Yeah, so let's talk about I Heart Arlo, the series follow-up to a movie that we really liked, Arlo the Alligator Boy. And I'm pretty sure the same creators, or like the director of the movie, also created the series. So I Love Arlo follows the events of Arlo the Alligator Boy, where Arlo and his newfound crew set up shop in the abandoned seaside neighborhood, Seaside by the Seashore, to help bring it back to life. So let's start with the positives.
Well, for one, everyone from the movie returns as their individual characters. So that means we got Michael J. Woodard, We got Mary Lambert, Jonathan Van Ness, Haley Zhu, Brett Gelman, and Tony Hale as our cast of misfits. And then we also got Vincent Rodriguez III, Annie Potts, Fred Tadashkior, and Flea and Jennifer Coolidge end up in the last 2 episodes of this season.
There's also a fun new character. Jessica Williams plays Elena, the mayor of New York City. I thought she was a pretty fun addition to the cast.
She was, and Jessica Williams did a great job voicing her. I also liked Melissa Villaseñor as Lily the Lobster Woman. I'm never going to understand how this world works when there are half animal hybrid people. But you know what? The show and the movie were never about that. So
I mean, once you see Marcellus, you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. And while this is definitely on the TV side of animation, the characters do look good. There's not too much of a downgrade. Now, there aren't as many dynamic movements or animated sequences as the movie. Like, you don't see a lot of the squash and stretch approach, but the characters still look like how they do, and they are still very expressive. That's all you can ask for. You don't want to be like, you know how like there would be like a big hit animated film and then it gets a TV series, and well, it's like the Croods, A New Age, and then we have that new Croods show and it looks better, like the visuals and the designs translate better, but everything else is a downgrade.
At least with this show, there is a difference, but not a significant one. At least the characters are all on model.
Yeah. And there are musical numbers. Not every episode has one. So we have 19 episodes. And what did you count, like 12?
On the soundtrack, there are 12 tracks.
And while they are more hit and miss, there are still a few good songs. Like, I love the Marcellus opera. I thought that was very humorous. And I liked Just Another Night in New York and Rough and Stucky, and then the Bog Lady songs.
I was kind of hard pressed to figure out like which songs like just completely fell flat, but I think some of my favorites were, I like the very first one, the theme song, As Long As We Got Each Other. The one that kind of surprised me was Aaliyah's song, Slow Walk, in the Be the Turtle episode.
Right.
Probably my favorite of the latter half of the episodes is I Can Lift You Up.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Now, the comedy for the show, which just like the soundtrack, is hit and miss, but it still has a lot of that absurd, cartoony humor from time to time. Like when Birdie needs to watch the large frog.
Jeromeo.
Yeah, Jeromeo. And she thought that Jeromeo was trying to kill her. And then Arlo's like, no, Jeromeo won't kill you. He's never killed anyone. Plus, they were already dead before he got there. So it's like, wait, what?
I think Frog Day the 13th might be the funniest episode of the bunch. They packed in so many clever running gags. Like the one that always had me laughing was the news reporter who is commenting on the weather and her personal life.
Yeah. I am regretting a bunch of my life decisions. And it has a lot of great visual gags, especially with Jeromeo getting hungrier and hungrier as he does like reference a ton of horror movie elements.
Oh, yep.
It's probably the best animation from the show. And I do like some of the jokes from the A Memory of Pizza, where Arlo's dad is like you don't need to be rich for me to connect with you. Like, why do you think I'm like that? And then Marcellus walks up and he's like, "Here is your memory of pizza, sir. It smells of caviar, wine, and inherited wealth." And he's like, "Oh, those are three of my favorite things." Oh no, wait, now I hear it. It's a very cute show. It's a very cute show that I think overstays its welcome a little.
I'd be lying if I said I disagreed. Maybe that is just because although the episodes are shorter than most series, like these are only 10 to 12 minutes compared to a full 23-minute episode. So at least this reminded me of the first season of Tig and Seek that we reviewed probably over a year ago, where it was 20 episodes, but each one was like a solid 10 minutes.
Yeah, there are 19 episodes with I Heart Arlo, and it feels overstuffed. And I think a big problem, or at least my criticism, is that the writing and character dynamics are not as strong as the movie. And I think that drags some of the episodes down, because this feels very much like a show that would have been made in the 80s or the 90s after a hit movie was made. And usually that's not a bad thing, but I just wasn't gelling with this show as much as I was hoping to.
I think the problem is the story does kind of feel a bit slight. Like pretty much the whole through line of this season is, oh, we got to make the town look good so we don't get condemned. But they kind of solved that problem already in the first episode, but they keep dragging out the unbecoming as like the end game for the season, which is fine. But I think this is an example of a series that honestly didn't need to have like an ongoing storyline. It could have just been like episodic adventures. That is kind of true, but the problem you run into with this one is they really want to have their cake and eat it too. That's like a rule with Netflix, is you have to have some sort of through line or else people aren't going to care. But I think people would like the show just if it was like something more like The Fungies, which has a couple reoccurring plots, but the show is mostly standalone.
Yeah, and the problem is there are two plots. There's the repair of the city or the town that they are in, and then something is going on in the swamp, but that is pretty much dropped for a mass majority of this first season. It's weird because once you pick up the swamp plot again, literally in the last 1.5 episodes, like there are a few mentions here and there about something going on, but then it doesn't feel satisfactory or anything like that. And I hate to compare this show to another one, probably my favorite show of the year, Centaur World.
Yeah,
because Centaur World had an ongoing plot. It kept the story moving forward throughout its 10 episodes, but it also handled the mystery and the threat of the Nowhere King. Like, it would bring it up as much as it needed to, but it was focused more on the characters. And here it's like, oh, I forgot about the swamp plot, and it seems like there's no real stake in if they don't refurbish or bring back this lost town, but because of how the stories are pretty much episodic. And then we get some pretty big world building elements in the last episode where you find out that there's the swamp spirit, or the aka the bog lady, who's voiced by Santa Gold, and she was never referenced
until this episode.
And it's weird. It feels like the show needed some kind of conflict, and it doesn't work. or it doesn't feel satisfactory as a story. Because then the whole season wraps up like it's the series finale. I don't know, that's the vibe I got from it.
It's kind of weird. Like, if we don't get a second season of this, then, I think personally I'll be okay, because on the whole, I enjoyed the series, but to not get a second season after a storyline that really amounts to, oh, our town is it's okay by the mayor to exist, yay, doesn't really have a lot of meat on its bones, if that makes any sense.
Right. And who knows how many episodes were produced, because there could be a lot more like that we just don't know about. But until then, it just feels rushed. The overall show feels underbaked, and I'm really sad about that. I don't want to go into a show or a movie hating it.
As you were talking, I was looking up the credentials for the series creator, Ryan Kriego, and he's pretty green. He was a supervising director for Sanjay and Craig. He directed the movie Arlo the Alligator Boy, but other than that, I don't really see a lot on his resume, which is fine. Like, he's not untalented. This just kind of feels like a series made by, a seasoned veteran.
What's disappointing is there are a few episodes that have a good message to them. Like, there's the one episode with Felicia learning just to make sure to take time for themselves and don't like overwork yourself, or like Marcellus doing too much, like overextending his help and support and such. But then that's really it. There's just not a whole lot here. In general, if you like the movie, you'll probably like the show. I would say you could just watch the movie, and that's all you need to do.
I would still comfortably recommend the series, since if you're already subscribed to Netflix, it's not like it's going to cost you any extra. It feels more like something that really people who are fans of the movie are going to enjoy more than the common Joe Schmo. If you want the better like musical series, then yeah, I'd say Centaur World is my first recommendation.
Agreed. Usual. If you want to have an opinion on something, I'd recommend watching the movie, watching the show, reading the book, playing the game, and you get the idea. I think it's time we move on from Seaside to outer space as we talk about Kid Cosmic Season 2.
Or as they call it, Kid Cosmic and the Intergalactic Truck Stop.
I love this show. Like, I loved the first season, and I already love Craig McCracken. I was a little surprised to see a second season so soon, because the original, season aired in like
February.
Yeah. I was wondering if we were going to have a Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts situation. But I don't know. If they can get the final season out before December ends, that'll be great.
By the way, season 3 apparently only has 6 episodes, so who knows? We could potentially see that in December or November.
Yeah, we'll have to see though. But for now, it's time to talk about the plot of the second season, which picks up after the first season ends, where our heroes need to take down Herodias, the planet killer. And it's not like the planet killer knows who this is, but he has a fanboy who is basically a Thanos mixed with Silver Surfer character named Phantos the Amasser, who's voiced by Bobby Moynihan, one of my favorites. What did you think about this second season before we dive into more detailed elements?
I think I like the second season just a bit better than the first, with a few caveats, but we'll get into that as we dive deeper in the show. For now, I think what I love about season 2 is now that they're taken into outer space, the writers and McCracken's team really get to play around more with like classic pulp sci-fi and comic book tropes. Like Bobby Moynihan plays Phantos, who is the most obvious parody of like Darkseid, Thanos, Galactus. Even his like power suit, it's basically Galactus, but like with the Infinity Gauntlet. And Moynihan's performance is hysterical. They've tweaked his voice like and lowered it to basically sounding like Zurg from Buzz Lightyear Star Command.
Yeah.
And probably the funniest thing about his character is how he really is like the intergalactic nerd who lives in his mother's basement.
Or in this case, his mother's spaceship. And he is just a delightfully threatening villain. Because for the most part, while he can be a threat, he's just a fanboy. He's like, when I love his speech about like in the deep vastness of space, in its vastness, there are 13 cosmic stones of power. Finding them are rare, but finding 5 of them in a row, like at the same time, is a miracle. And your shipping company lost them. As he talks to like his FedEx, UPS company, and then like when the planet gets killed by Erodius, he's like, "Dear FedEx losers." Oh no, wait, your planet just got destroyed. Dear FedEx planet losers, ha 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 ha! Like yours truly, Fantosia Master. Send. Or like how he tries to take a selfie every time Erodius shows up. He's a very enjoyable villain. A lot more interesting than the government guy from the first season.
Oh, what was it? The
biker in black, who's played by Jason Hightower, and who's in charge of the Earth
Force Enforcement Force.
Yeah. Oh, I love that title. But Erodius does actually pose a threat. He's not just like a comedic villain, because he actually does get the upper hand a majority of the times that our characters run into him. And I like that, because I think there could have been a bit too much of a push for him just to be a comedic villain.
I'm glad that, like, even though he did have that comedic bent to his character, they still went the distance to make him more threatening.
Right. But I do love like the little details of like when he first meets Kid, and he's surprised that Kid is actually excited about being taken hostage. And then when he tries to call back to the diner, and he's just like, "Fear me, I demand, please be put on hold." And he's just like, she hung up on me. I know, this is our lunch rush, don't worry. And then she's like, "Okay, how can I help you?" "I demand 5 coffee." "Please be on hold for a second." And then he's just like, "This is the 3rd time she's hung up on me. Should I like wait half an hour and try again?" Like if they weren't like trying to get all the cosmic stones, he could very well be a part of the team.
Yeah, he would fit in quite nicely.
But then we also have some other new characters with Krosh, an alien warrior who was the champion of the Fight Hold, who's voiced by the ever amazing April Winchell.
God, I love her.
Yeah, she's great. And then we also get some more, like everyone gets a little more time on screen, or at least more time given to them. Like the diners who are at the diner, you know, like Carl, the truck driver, Carla, the biker, Carlos and Ramona, and Fry and Hamburg actually get to partake in some action or missions. It's great to see them continuously expand upon the show's story world and giving even the side characters some time in the sunshine.
I think that's a secret strength of McCracken and the writers is that the more they expand like the core cast, the more they make sure that even characters who in a previous episode only had one line, they will return in the future. Like, for example, Grey Griffin plays another character named Boss Fiosa, who's a two-headed alien crime boss who you think she would just be a one-off for that episode, but then she comes back to help the team in the final battle.
They do a good job of wrapping all the story beats back around to the final episode. And Grey Griffin also plays Carla, the biker lady, and Ramona, Rosa's mom. Unfortunately, Chuck takes a little bit of backseat driving. Like, he's in the background more this season than the others, even though I kind of get it.
Also because Tom Kenny is in everything.
Well, that's one reason why I love Chuck is because of Tom Kenny's performance. But I was kind of bummed he didn't really do a lot. And maybe that's just because his story arc was complete in the first season. So he's there, but there wasn't really enough time, or the focus needed to actually be on our actual main character of the season, Joe, who's played again by Amanda Celine Miller. And her arc of becoming the leader of the local heroes, and then just like the conflict of listening to her mom, Flo, voiced by Kim Yarborough, and Queen Zahn, voiced by the always amazing Cree Summer. And I thought that was a good move to a different character, because Kid, his arc is over. He had to focus on the first season. Joe has to focus on the second season.
And I'm really curious who's going to be the focus of the third season.
Watch it be tuna sandwich. No, I'm curious if there will be another, like, a character gets a different focus point. I kind of want it to be Papa G, and not just because I love Keith Ferguson, but I feel like there could be, it's like they hinted, like I rewatched the first season recently, and it seemed like they kind of hinted at a few things about Papa G's backstory, but I could be very much wrong in what they're going to do for the third season. And I'm kind of bummed that there's only going to be 3 seasons.
Yeah, this really is kind of feeling like Kipo.
Kipo and like the Owl House and Amphibia. Like, I guess there's some behind the scenes thing about 3 seasons being the proper length, which is good. I think that's a good length for a show, because for something as story focused as Kid Cosmic, it's a show that shouldn't overstay its welcome.
Right. It's so good that you just want more.
I mean, I think that's what kind of hurts Venture Brothers. Even though I love that show and I liked the story, it was just continuously adding on more story. Like, there's no end goal in sight. And then it got canceled, and then it's going to have a movie to wrap things up. So, but what did you think of Joe's story arc of becoming a leader, and then the conflict of her listening to either her mom or Zahn?
I thought this was the best part of the series, of the season at least. I found myself getting very impatient with Kid and Joe, but we'll get to that in a second. Like you said, Kid's arc did kind of wrap in season 1, and season 2, he's a kid. He's going to act immature, but he seemed to go just one step over the edge. But the heart of this season is Joe and her relationship with both her mother and the local heroes. And while even she has her frustrating moments, like, I think the best example of that is the puzzle episode, where instead of actually taking her time to listen to her team. She just kind of rushes in and takes the shortcut. That episode really exposed a lot of her flaws, but it's also proof that like they know exactly what they're doing with this arc. As much as the external expansion of the show has reached like intergalactic levels, McCracken and his team really, they keep the show emotionally grounded with its characters. And I think that's what makes the show so special.
Yeah, no, it tells a very compelling story, and just the different like leadership styles from Queen Zan and Flo. You can understand why Joe would fall into like the more just look for the most quote unquote objective fighters or candidates for the Power Stones and take out the elements that the local heroes had, which was heart, and just get the job done without really taking in the humanity of the situation. And it does end up biting her in the end.
One thing I was kind of relieved about was that there wasn't some big twist that Queen Jean was like evil or like secretly working for Herodias. Maybe it was just my interpretation, but there were moments throughout the season where it felt like Jean had ulterior motives, but it's really just a philosophical debate between her and Flo.
That's what it was. It was the more passive, heartfelt route of becoming a leader, or the more straightforward, no nonsense route. And you could see the pros and cons of both. But of course, Flo had the right mindset.
I think the turning point for Jean is introducing that civilization of refugees from the tiny refugees from that planet that Herodias destroyed. That made a huge difference for everyone, but especially Jean, as she was kind of given a new purpose.
Yeah, no, it was a good story beat to give to them, and it's a good story overall. Like, they up the stakes, and by the end of it, they all do come together to beat Herodias and Phantos, and they do end up destroying Herodias. Sorry, I love when Phantos would basically yell out Herodias's name every time he showed up or talked about him. So what did you think of the new Power Stones? Because now that we know that there were like an entire planet made of them, and then of course that Phantos thought there were only 13 of them.
I like the opportunities that they have for the next season, because now it happened after, by the way, we talk spoilers on the show.
Yeah, so basically by the end of the second season, with using the goop power up, they destroy Herodias from the inside, and this causes and you find out that Herodias is made of all the cosmic stones made from all the different planets. And then after they beat Herodias, the stones basically scatter all over the world. And then you find out from Agent Pink, Agent Blue, and Agent Green of the PPG, Planet Protection Group, aka Craig using a non-copyright version of the Powerpuff Girls.
Very clever.
Yeah, it's very clever, and they even got the same voice actors. Kathy Cavadini, Tara Strong, and E.G. Daly reprise their roles. And it'll be interesting to see what the final conflict will be for the show.
Since we know there's only 6 episodes left, I'm wondering maybe these last episodes are a little more overstuffed. Like, say the last 2 are like 30 minutes each as opposed to 25. So they've got more, set up some big epic conclusion. All I know right now is that I love this show. I love the people behind this. It's cool to see a show that is so marinated in its influences. This is a show that's very, very heavily influenced by classic pulp sci-fi, comic books, superheroes, all of that. And yet it still kind of feels fresh and original.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare these days.
It is. And if you're wondering about the animation, The animation pretty much stays the same from the first season. It's still really good. All the characters are expressive, and they do take in that Jack Kirby visual aesthetic, especially with that pyramid puzzle episode, which is just a great visual look.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
just this big floating pyramid in the sky and such on this ocean planet. The action is really good. The different cosmic stones, a lot of like creativity to the table, especially with like stretchy powers, super speed, damage negation, and goop. I love all the little jokes that they do with the goop, where it's like, so they're like, "Hey, what's this? Oh, hold on," and you find out that like kid forgot to put his pinky back on when he was in his goop form, or it's like his nose is missing, or like in the final episode when everyone's using the goop powers, all of their body parts are swapped. It's a very creative show, and I would say this might be Craig McCracken's best show. I'd have to like rewatch his other work, but I think this one is my favorite of his, at the very least.
It's hard to top the original Powerpuff Girls because that show will just always have a special place in my heart. But, you know, I think for each new series that he's developed, he just keeps getting better at creating characters that you can latch onto.
Well, all of his shows have a different, distinct tone to them. Like you got Powerpuff Girls, which had its cutesy visuals, but immense amounts of hyperviolence. Then you got like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which has a truly distinct art style compared to like a lot of shows that were on Cartoon Network. And then you had Wander Over Yonder, and then you have Kid Cosmic, and you can't really compare them to one another. So that's a good sign of a good creator, that their shows are wildly different from one another. Yeah, I think that's really it for what I have to say about Kid Cosmic. Good second season, good job on expanding upon the world and such, and I can't wait for the third season.
We move on to our next show, which again, kind of another surprise. This is the 2021 CGI series for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is developed by Rob David. Executive producers are Adam Bonnet, Rob David, Christopher Keenan, and Frederick Sully. And this was produced by Mattel Television, animation by House of Cool, and CGCG Inc.
Yeah, so I know everyone was really confused as to why there were two different He-Man shows coming out, even though they're easily identifiable in different ways. Like Masters of the Universe Revelations is a continuation of the original He-Man and is more adult in the way of it being more mature and a little more gory in its violence. But then we have this one, which is basically from the ground up reboot, a different iteration of the show. Granted, when I first found out about this new show, it was from the toy ads, because I didn't see the trailer for it until the trailer decided to drop whenever marketing thought it would be good. So yeah, I was a little worried, a touch concerned about what the tone of the show was going to be. And then you actually watch the show, and it's really good. It's the best incarnation of the franchise. That's not the 2000s reboot, the Revelations continuation of the original, and it's light years and galaxies better than the original show.
Yeah, no, easily.
To be clear, the original He-Man was made in a very bad time period for shows. This was during that time period where like the government was regulating TV, and they said like every kid's show needs to not be violent or super violent in its action, and has to have like some kind of moral lesson at the end, because you know that kind of regulation is fun and not at all limiting to art. That's why the 80s were a terrible time to make cartoons, especially with how cheap they were made. And I'm not going to get over the fact that I'm sure Filmation had like a catalog, a database of some kind of animation loops.
Or character models that almost always look the same.
They use this. They always look the same. They had the same mouth movements and same walk cycles. It's like rehashing assets for a video game and such. It's very distracting, not at all entertaining to watch. And I know there's a charm to it, and there are some things that the original show did well, but it's never enough to really call it a good show, because I think every other show outside of that one weird 90s incarnation of He-Man where they gave Skeletor eyes for some reason, the New Adventures of He-Man, which did not last long at all. But yeah, 1990s, the New Adventures of He-Man. Oh gosh, it looks like G.I. Joe. It very much looks like a G.I. Joe knockoff. But anyway, so what does this show do better than other shows? Well, for one, they ditch a few of the original tropes. By the end of the first season, they know about, what's his name? King Randor knows about Prince Adam being He-Man. They don't keep that mystery clock ticking at all. I love that, because really, when you watch the original show, I joked about this when we talked about Revelations. It's like, how can you not tell Adam is He-Man? Just rip his shirt off and he and it would be him. At least the reboots and Revelations actually toned his body down, which then became the norm because, well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think in this version, there is probably the most discrepancy between Prince Adam and He-Man. At the very least, the hair is noticeably different, and he goes from, a scrawny teenager to Hercules.
Very much so. Yes, you can tell that these designs were made for toys. I wish I had these toys back in the day.
Right?
That was the thing. Like, toys were not made on a very big budget, or at least they weren't made to be as detailed or as interesting. You would just have, like, you got one buff character, you use that same body type for every other character. The 80s were a mistake.
It was a decade of excess, but very chaotic.
Yeah. And another change that they make is, for one, are the characters. Duncan, aka Man at Arms, is actually a scrawny young man or teenager. They don't really describe the age for a lot of these characters, but I'm going to assume older teen, young adults.
I think that's a fair assumption.
Then we also have Crass, aka Ram Mam, a female incarnation of the original He-Man character Ram Man. And then we have Tila, who's the sorceress. And then we have Orko, a robot incarnation of the jester wizard character. Yeah, Orko the Great. And he's also voiced by Tom Kenny. And then we have Battle Cat, who's not like, whoa, I'm so scared. He-Man, I don't want to fight. Well, first off, he's voiced by David Kaye, and he's great.
Yeah.
He's more of the story beats here is that Adam was thought to be gone along with the king's brother, Prince Keldor. Something happens to Keldor. We'll get to it, and it's pretty obvious if you've seen the show or the trailers. You know exactly what's going to happen to him. But then Adam is taken in by Battle Cat and his tribe of
the Tiger Clan. He's
best friends with Crass, who uses her head in more ways than one. Since, again, a new incarnation of Ram Man, or known as Ram Mam in this show. Duncan and Tila had connections to Cronus and Evelyn, who were once a part of Randor's kingdom, but then through a coup were banished. And then let's get to the powers. instead of He-Man being the one and only thing that can apparently save the universe, I swear the old show was all designed to like, oh no, I can't spread this peanut butter across my toast. He-Man, save me. You're the only one who can do this. This show takes more of a, I don't know if I'm going to curse this podcast or not by saying this. They pull a Last Jedi by saying everyone has the power instead of just I have the power.
Which I think I like because, well, two things. One, they abuse the hell out of the transformation sequence, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the classic Sailor Moon and Power Rangers. But that's the other thing. They turn the Masters of the Universe into a team like the Power Rangers. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's not like that they weren't already a team in previous incarnations, but it was all pretty much like these random assortment of warriors, and then we can't stop Evil or Skeletor. Yay, He-Man, he's gonna save the day and just solve all of our problems. I like that. It's a more universal message, and they definitely play a creative spin on it with how the villains use the powers also, because then you find out that Cronus turns into Trapjaw and Evelyn turns into Evil Lyn. And then, of course, Keldor turns into Skeletor.
And I love the voice of Skeletor. He's played Benjamin Diskin.
So for people who may remember, we've talked about Diskin before because he's been on his podcast a lot. He's the Great Angel from High Rise Invasion. He's the boy from Pacific Rim to Black. He's number 1 and number 2 from Kids Next Door. He's Haina from Agretsuko.
He's also Gyoza from Dorohedoro.
Yeah, and he's Mega Man in Mega Man 11. So big time voice actor.
Also, he's Bebo in Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that's true. So yeah, big time voice actor. He's been in so much animation that we could literally take an episode just to talk about him and his many roles and stuff like Cells at Work, Playmobil the movie, Demon Slayer, and you get the idea.
And the rest of this cast is pretty awesome as well. Yuri Lowenthal.
He plays Prince Adam in He-Man.
Talked about David Kaye. Grey Griffin is Evelyn.
Roger Craig Smith as Trapjaw. Anthony Del Rio as Duncan / Man-at-Arms. Judy Alice Lee is Crass / Ram Mam. And then Kimberly Brooks is Tila and the Eldris, the Guardian of Grayskull.
The reason why that casting is very cool is because in the Masters of the Universe mythos, the Eldris is the mother of Tila. So the fact that they have the same voice actress is a cool nod to that little detail.
It is a good nod to that little element. But yeah, I thought like the transformation stuff was interesting with how, like, I don't know if you observed the wording that like He-Man and Skeletor would use. Like when Prince Adam would turn into He-Man, their battle cry was like, we have the power. But Skeletor, from the powers of Havoc, they have my power.
There's a clear difference between the power of Grayskull and the forces of Havoc.
Benjamin Diskin does a good job as Skeletor. I love his take of, he's threatening, but he still has a sense of humor about himself.
It's a very unhinged performance once he actually transforms into Skeletor.
And I love like all the jokes that come up, like when he finally reunites with King Randor. He's just like, do you notice anything different? And King Randor's like, no. It's like, the skeleton face, that I don't have a nose. It's like everything. It's like, oh, you mean like you got a new haircut or something? Like, or like Skeletor would be like, it's gonna be bone chilling. Just because if everyone would roll his eyes at his dad jokes and many puns, but they don't overdo it. they took Skeletor and like because Havoc is, chaotic in a lot of regards, the power, I mean. So of course he would act like as a threat, but he would also be unhinged, chaotic enough to have like a sense of humor about it. Like when they get to the Snake Mountain and he's just like, "Don't keep me waiting." as he waits for like Prince Adam and his friends to transform. Or like, "Yeah, I'm up here, you're down there. I got a microphone."
And you don't.
Or like once they finally transform, he's just like, "That took forever."
It's like he had a copy of the script next to him.
Yeah. And there's a few meta jokes about that. And I think they handle the humor very well here.
I think one of my favorite jokes right in the first episode is like the guards are capturing Teeler or the guards are like, "Stop right there," or like, "Drop the weapon." It's like, okay, she puts the sword behind her back.
Is she just continuing to steal? And by the way, those two guards, the purple and blue one, they're a reference to who we might see in the future, because there were these two characters called Too Bad, which was like this conjoined twin like villain.
Oh yeah.
And if you've seen the 2002 reboots, they had an interesting origin where they had the two of them as bounty hunters and they couldn't work together. And when they failed, Skeletor fused them together.
I think I remember that episode.
Yeah, it was a really good episode. There are like little touches here and there. I want to talk about something that you kind of pointed out. This show is funny and it never feels like it's trying to force its humor on us.
Yeah, the humor, it just kind of falls out of the characters naturally, which I think is just kind of like that style of writing has kind of become the norm for action / adventure centric, like story driven shows these days. And I think I really started noticing this with DuckTales as far back as 2017, where the writing just, it's sharp as a tack, but it's not trying to force its humor. It's just kind of the humor's coming from the characters, not necessarily only in certain situations.
Right. And that's refreshing because a lot of times there are moments where it feels like a lot of adult comedies are trying to like throw in a lot of jokes or try to be witty, and it doesn't work because it's like you can tell that they're trying too hard to make you laugh. I found myself laughing like alongside He-Man because the jokes came more naturally. But let's talk about probably the most surprising aspect about this show, the animation.
Yeah.
This show looks great. And I think what happens is there's a lot more polish and a lot more investment, talent, and time put into making the show feel visually distinct.
Do you remember watching the behind the scenes special features on, say, The Incredibles DVD, where they kind of showed how before these characters were rendered into 3D, like a lot of time went into the designing the characters in 2D. I kind of feel like that's how the designs for these characters were conceived. Like this show, again, referencing Jack Kirby again, this really does feel like it captures that sort of comic book art / like heavy metal art, like album artwork aesthetic, but just translate that from 2D to 3D, and it looks really cool. They also add a little bit of 2D flourishes, like with the smoke and lightning effects.
They take a lot of inspiration from how anime is executed.
Yes.
Because there are a ton of like speed lines in the backgrounds, or like when characters are moving and such. There are a lot more 2D elements infused into the CGI. And I think that's what makes this show look better than a mass majority of CGI shows that are made from DreamWorks. Like, I'm sorry to talk about the DreamWorks TV division, but there's something very stagnant to a lot of their shows, like that new Madagascar preschool show that they do, or like the upcoming Crudes show, like where it looks they like the character models look fine, but there was more resources put into something else than to let them look like. I sort of enjoyed the Puss in Boots show that's on Netflix, but after a while, it was like, this looks like a higher end PlayStation 2 / early PlayStation 3 game.
Even the DreamWorks Dragons series, Race to the Edge, that was probably the best that CGI has looked on a television budget. Even that, like compared to the films, you can definitely feel the absence of, like, say, Roger Deakins as a light consultant, all the details that made the movies so unique.
Right. I can tell, and like I was wondering, like, where have I heard this studio before? And they helped out with a lot of shows and movies. Like they helped out with a lot of Blue Sky stuff. They worked on a few other lower end CGI films.
One of their credits is DreamWorks Dragons.
Yeah. And they worked on like the Troll Hunter series from DreamWorks, which I think looks good because it was given the same treatment as this, as this He-Man show. And the action feels great. It's such a satisfying action show. Like, it's dynamic, the cinematography is great, the action is fast paced. There's like actual weight behind the hits and the swings, and when enemies go down, it's like again, it's like that thing with a lot of CGI shows where there's a floatiness to how the action is, or like the comedy, and that's why it doesn't always work. This show got a lot of support, and I don't know if it's just a resources thing or they just had a great team behind it.
I think the reason why this looks as well as it does is because Mattel really wants to push He-Man as like a viable property. That must be why we got this and Revelation within, just a few months, because they're pushing this brand hard, for better and for worse.
Because they got toys to sell, and they're going to make that one comedy-based Transformers show that's going to be based on a bunch of toys coming out, I think either next year or so. I'm trying to remember the timeline of when we talked about that news announcement.
Yeah, that might be coming up soon.
But by the way, that meme from Phineas and Ferb about, like, boy, if I had a nickel for every time insert thing happened here, I'd have 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but it's more than I was expecting to. Because how many times have this year they've given us like 2 things of like 2 different experiences that just happen to have one thing in common? Like,
that's happened a couple times. Like even like 2 shows that we talked about today feature the voices of Grey Griffin and Fred Tatasciore.
Well, that, but also like we have 2 animated films this year that have Maya Rudolph as a mom. We have 2 different musical shows that have Santa Gold in them, with I Heart Arlo and Centaur World. She plays the mole judge. Then we have 2 He-Man shows. Like, it's interesting, to say the least, how we keep running into, and maybe it's just because this year is more stacked, but it's just interesting, that's all. And really, and we have 2 He-Man shows that basically end the same way.
Wow.
I mean, think about it. Spoilers from Revelations. Skeletor has He-Man's power and is now ruler of Eternia. Here in the show, in the CGI series, it ends with Skeletor taking the throne of the kingdom.
By the way, I've got one nitpick with this show, and that's how they keep interchanging the name of Eternia. Like, one minute they'll call it Eternia, the next it's Eternos, and the show never makes any like distinction between the two, and I kind of found that a little bit frustrating.
No, that is frustrating, but then you get a line from Skeletor like Evelyn, I want a battle cat for my birthday. Second, why won't you stay dead, He-Man? Like, I guess for me, like, my criticisms get outshined by the fact that I had such a good time with this show. And also, the theme song slaps hard. They didn't need to go this hard on a theme song as much as they did.
This theme song, it slaps, and it reminds me a lot of theme songs from like the early 2000s and a lot of those shows that you'd see on like Kids WB. I think the one that reminded me of the most is the theme for Static Shock. How it's very obviously very hip hop based, but just has that very like high energy to it.
It reminds me of the 2010s Avengers show, the first one, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Yes.
Not boring, underwhelming, at least to me, Avengers cartoon that came out after the
Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I know. Nothing against it or the people working on it or the talent of the voice actors. It's just they already had an Avengers show. Anyway, I hope there's a second season. And since they are trying to push He-Man as his viable property, which is what got the 2000s reboot killed because nobody was buying the toys and nobody was watching the show, I highly recommend it. I'd actually would argue it's one of my favorite new shows of 2021. And I know it's like, new quote unquote, but it's new in the sense of it's not continuing from the original. It's really not connected at all. It's its own continuity. I want to see I want to see what they do with other heroes because I love that they take like some of these characters and give them like cool transformations. By the way, Beastman's transformation is horrifying.
Oh yeah.
I mean, all of these are really cool, but just the fact that like the character or Rikaz, who turns into Beastman, his body turns to stone, but the Beastman form comes out of him like the alien chest burster. No, there's no blood and gore or anything, but that's graphic and animalistic, which makes sense for the character. Watch this show.
I don't know where this on my list right now. It would probably be either top 5 or top 10. This show is just another one of 2021's surprises where I didn't realize how much I would love it until I watched that first episode and thought, I want more. If you can grab me in the first 5 minutes, then I know that I'm probably going to love it.
Yeah, definitely check this show out. I was a little bummed they didn't give screeners out for this one. Or they did, but they were very choosy with who they gave it to. Let's move on to our final animation thing to talk about.
Yeah, we're on the next stop of the Ghibli journey, and it is an unfortunately tragic one. So the movie we're talking about today is Whisper of the Heart, the first and only directorial effort for Yoshifumi Kondo, who was a longtime animator at Ghibli. And this film was written by Miyazaki, based on the manga of the same name by Aoi Hiragi. And we follow a girl named Shizuku, who lives a very simple life, dominated by her love for stories and writing. One day, she notices that all the library books she has ever been previously checked out by the same person, Seiji Amasawa. Curious as to who he is, Shizuku meets a boy her age whom she finds infuriating, but discovers to her shock that he is her prince of books. As she grows closer to him, she realizes that he merely read all those books to bring himself closer to her. The boy Seiji aspires to be a violin maker in Italy, and it is his dreams that make Shizuku realize that she has no clear path for her life. Knowing that her strength lies in writing, she tests her talents by writing a story about Baron, a cat statuette belonging to Seiji's grandfather. Yeah, the reason why this one is kind of bittersweet to talk about is because Kondo passed away in 1998 from an aneurysm. And he was like supposed to be the heir apparent at Studio Ghibli. You know, he was going to be like, they really considered him to be like the next top director after Miyazaki and Takahata. But he was taken from us at the young age of 47. But it hurts because this movie is just so good. Honestly, I would consider it, like, as of now, like top 3 or top 5 all time in the Ghibli library.
Yeah, it's one of my, well, I said it last time, it's my fifth or so favorite Ghibli film. It's at least in the top 5 for me as well. It's very different. And what helps is that this is what From Up on Poppy Hill wanted to be this movie, because this film has a lot of the same themes of just coming of age, finding your path, and going against the challenges that come with said path to growing up and finding your what you want to do when you get older, like as a career and such. It's a very sweet movie. What also stands out about it is that it's in a more modern setting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, modern in the sense that it's 1990s.
Yeah.
And that's not the only thing, though. Let's talk about the one song that shows up throughout this whole movie, Country Roads, which it's not the John Denver version, though that would have been nice, but it's instead the version sung by Olivia Newton-John. And then they have a Japanese cover by Yoko Hana, who is the voice actor for Shizuku. What did you think about this song's inclusion? Because this is like one of the few times we see a American-made song used in a Ghibli film, with Bette Midler's The Rose used in Only Yesterday, or covered in Only Yesterday.
I think there was another American song that was in My Neighbors, the Yamadas.
Oh yeah, they did the Kaye, Sarah.
Anyway, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm the biggest John Denver fan, but for some reason I kind of love how they acknowledge that the lyrics to the song are pretty corny. It's kind of fun how they play around with the lyrics and do their own little interpolations. That really is kind of the start of Shizuku and Seiji's bond, which is very sweet. Everything about their relationship is very sweet.
It feels, once again, very grounded with how it handles its characters, with how impulsive and unpredictable teenagers can be when their emotions take over. Because there's a lot of like typical, like, oh, I'm crushing on this boy, but the boy I'm crushing on said that the love letter I got was not from him, but a friend of his. And then that boy actually loves the main girl and such. Like, it has a little bit of that teenage drama, but a lot of that is in the background, while the main drama is of Shizuku just trying to find her own path in the world. And I like that. It's a very compelling story, because I think everyone, when they're going into high school or leaving high school, are not always sure what they want to do.
I don't know how true this is for all families. There always seems to be this like mounting pressure of, you have to make a decision what you want to do at like this age, where, you know, some people take their sweet time even after college to really know the direction they want to take.
And that's the power of Ghibli, because I know while they have more fantastical stories to tell, they still told a very human story from time to time. Not that the other ones weren't human, but there was definitely more of a fantasy element to those human stories. This one is just very human and realistic.
Well, for most of the movie.
There is some Ghibli magic and wonder, but it's really in the background of when Shizuku is writing her fantasy story based around the Cat Baron, which I know we talked about The Cat Returns first before we got to this. Blame the wheel, not us. But this is the first time we are introduced to the Cat Baron character, who was very popular when this movie came out. And of course, even though we would see him later, Cary Elwes did what he was supposed to with the character, because he in this movie he's just like a character within the story, but not like a main character, like a side character within Shizuku's dreams and thoughts of her fantasy story. Now, since you've seen both incarnations of the Baron, what do you have a preferred version, or
That's a good question. I like to think of the Cat Returns version as like kind of takes place in the fictional universe of Shizuku's story, whereas this is the reason why there's not a lot of characterization in this movie is because we're just getting to know this brand new character. He really comes to life in a movie that takes place fully in a fictional world. But performance wise, I like Elwes in both films equally.
he brings a charm to them, and this will not be the last time we hear from Cary Elwes. I think we have one more movie that he shows up in.
But speaking of the English cast, this is just another example of the Disney era of Ghibli pretty much making like the best casting decisions. Casting Brittany Snow and David Gallagher, two actors who are equally known for their singing as Shizuku and Seiji. That was a smart choice. I like Jean Smart as the mom.
Yeah, she's great.
Late Harry Gould as the antique shop owner.
He was my favorite performance of those, because he just had that voice. Don't get that voice anymore.
He had that warmth of like someone who just kind of had a passion for creativity. He just kind of enjoyed the company of others.
And then we also had, of course, like we said, Cary Elwes. And then we had, Shizuku's sister is played by Courtney Thorne Smith. And then one of Shizuku's friends is played by Ashley Tisdale. And then we have James B. Sicking, who plays Shizuku's dad. It's a smaller celebrity-filled cast than a lot of them. A lot of these are big names, but I don't think of these names outside of Cary Elwes. When I think of Ghibli dub actors, these are not the first ones to come up in my thoughts.
Yeah, the ones that come up more often for me are people like Tress MacNeille, Corey Burton. Corey Burton does show up in a minor role. I think other Ghibli films have a bit more of a star-studded cast. This just happens to have actors who are just right for the role.
Yeah, and that's always the good thing about Ghibli films and Disney and Pixar's casting is, for the most part, they're like, they don't think, I mean, we've said this before, they don't think of who's the biggest star we can market this with, and instead, who's the right actor we can get. I thought they all did a pretty good job, and I give kudos to Brittany Snow for having to sing, because I think anytime a voice actor has to sing in a show that's usually not, or like something like an anime and such, it's always tough.
With anime, it's even harder because you have to match the lip flaps, but then you also have to sing like as best a translation of like the original dialogue as possible. And sometimes that translation can come off a little awkward.
There were a few points where I thought David Gallagher sounded a little one note. I thought the overall cast did a good job. There is something I have to talk about with this movie.
Is it the ending?
Yes, but it's more in defense of it, instead of being like, oh, well, there goes another abrupt ending, when that's not the case with this one. I think the ending is pretty good because they wrap everything up. They make sure that Shizuku and Seiji, like, they have their goals down. They're going to take more time in school and then polish their craft before they make it their full-time career of like making violins or writing stories. That's a pretty good story. And then, of course, the very last scene is of Seiji hugging Shizuku and being like, I love you, and then cuts to credits. And I thought that was good. I mean, like, what did you think?
I loved it. It's just kind of the perfect button for their arc. Like, they spent like the lion's share of the movie hating each other, or Shizuku at least just being annoyed. But, you know, over time, their romance blossomed. They established a deep connection. So naturally, we, the audience, are to assume that they are endgame.
They'd have their sweet moments. It's just, the stakes of the film is of Shizuku wondering what she wants to do. And just because the world is literally not ending doesn't mean there are no stakes in this story. I got annoyed with a Twitter, or not a Twitter, a Facebook comment, and because apparently a lot of people like to say like shows like Ted Lasso and such don't have stakes in them. That's a lie. Just because the world's not ending or they're dealing with like a villain who wants to destroy the planet or something doesn't mean that there are no stakes. Shizuku wondering what she wants to do with her life is the end of the world for her.
The discourse around stakes honestly makes me want to go vegan.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, like, I'm not one of those people who grades like a film or TV series as conflict on like some absolute scale where like basically what I'm trying to say is I don't watch movies for the plot. I watch them for the characters, the vibe, the atmosphere. If a story has a good hook, then yeah, you hooked me. I stay for the journey, not the destination.
Well, it's like when you watch like Moana, yes, the world is rotting away, but that's not really the stake, like per se. It's Moana and her growth as a character and such. So I think that's just something to remember, that a lot of stories use emotional logic, not set in stone, scientifically accurate logic.
Exactly.
I think people need to remember this. Humans are not always logical individuals. Oh, and did you notice during the credits that we actually do see Shizuku and Seiji ride across the bridge?
That was nice.
Yeah, and then you see Muta, the cat that goes around, or that you see from the film from time to time, like walk across, and then you see like Shizuku's friend waiting for that one male student like on the bridge. It's a great credit sequence because it just shows everyone living their life, and it's also just like animation flexing.
Mm-hmm. Like I said before, Kondo spent at least from like 1987 right up until his death, he was like the key animator for a good chunk of Ghibli's works. Like he did Grave of the Fireflies, Kiki's Delivery Service, Only Yesterday, Porco Rosso, Ocean Waves, Pompoko, and the last thing he worked on was Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, he also worked on some pre-Ghibli stuff that had Miyazaki and Takahata attached to them, like Panda Go Panda, Lupin the Third, Anne of Green Gables, and Future Boy Conan, which is getting a Blu-ray release. I'm so excited. But in general, I wish Kondo got to live to make more movies, because I feel like this was one of the reasons why Ghibli did not do the whole we gotta future-proof our studio.
Feels like, I don't know how close Kondo was to Miyazaki personally. It does kind of feel like his death really affected the way that Ghibli would, grow its company.
Yeah, and it caused Miyazaki to retire because I think he wanted to spend time with his family. And then, of course, after that, Spirited Away got made. Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies ever. I used to watch Whisper of the Heart so much in high school. I definitely recommend it if some of y'all have not watched it yet.
I'm so glad that I finally got to see this, because there's something very comforting about this movie in sort of the message of, if there is a dream that you're going after, yeah, it's going to be hard work. You're going to have to put in the time to polish your craft. But once you get there, it will be worth it.
That geode and allegory was great. But now then, Mike, I need the Ghibli wheel. All right, Ghibli wheel, turn, turn, turn. Let's see what you give us. Well, we might as well get this one out of the way. We're going to talk about Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh, I was afraid of this.
Yeah. This is the universally acclaimed Isao Takahata film. And it's also known as one of the saddest movies ever.
I was afraid of this, but we can't outrun this any longer.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we'd get like Porco Rosso or Kiki's Livery Service.
I was kind of hoping for Kiki or Princess Mononoke. Nope, we got to face the truth.
Yeah, no, it would have been nice to get something a little more low key, like My Neighbor Totoro or something like that. Now, for recommendations, I was worried at first that I was not going to have anything to recommend. But then I watched the new Paramount Plus adult comedy show, The Harper House, and it really clicked with me. I think for one thing, the visual style looks distinct from, it's not like another typical bento box production design process. It's more like human Muppets, more puppet looking than like Bob's Burgers or The Great North and such.
The eyes definitely look like Muppets.
And then the thing that I think saves the show or makes the show great, everyone likes each other in the main family. They don't hate each other. It's not edgy or mean-spirited or cynical or miserable. Not to say that they have any conflicts, because they do. But it's nice to see a family in an animated adult comedy that actually loves each other. Now, is this show so far as good as Close Enough? Not there yet, but I would consider it a good partner show to have alongside Close Enough because it was consistently funny and I like the character dynamics. That'll be my recommendation for today.
For my recommendation, I've got a couple obvious ones. We have been talking a lot more about Centaur World because, you know, for better or for worse, it was just naturally going to come up in conversation talking about I Love Arlo. I still consider that to be one of the best shows that Netflix has produced. And, you know, the soundtrack has been stuck in my head ever since. I will always end up like just casually humming Comfortable Doug. Like the characters all stand out. The animation is like a very unique blend of the dark and serious straight line animation of the horse versus like the colorful rounded bouncy animation of the people of Centaur World. I cannot stress enough how much I love that show. I've got two other recommendations. Obviously the other one is the movie Arlo the Alligator Boy. And then since September is Hispanic Heritage Month, I kind of wanted to throw some love towards Jorge Gutierrez's 2014 film, The Book of Life, which is a kind of a jukebox musical. That was like one of the first times, at least in the past 7 years, that I watched an animated film, not from Disney, not from DreamWorks, like pretty much not from a major studio, that I just like deeply fell in love with. I love the music. I love these characters. I love Jorge's, at the time, I think this was like his first venture into computer animation, which we'll talk about more once his Netflix miniseries, Maya and the Three, is finally released. This was one of the first times that I really fell in love with an animated film outside of like the major studios. And this is kind of when I started to realize that there are some really underappreciated singular voices in animation that I really wanted to start paying more attention to. Definitely check out The Book of Life. I think it's on Disney Plus if you've never seen it before.
It is.
Next week we have a very anime-centric episode. Not quite the fall season, but we're covering the reboot of Shaman King. We've got Eden Zero, and we have all 9 episodes of Star Wars Visions will be dropping, and that's probably my most anticipated mainstream animation project, and definitely my most anticipated Star Wars project in a long time.
Yeah, it looks great, and I can't wait to talk about it. I know. We're going to watch a bunch of anime before we have to watch a bunch of anime.
But at least this is stuff we want to watch and not, well,
Just
we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, we'll see what we end up loving or hating next time.
But for now, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I run my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows called The Other Side of Animation. And I have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. If you like my work, you can look for it there.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. You can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can look for us on Podchaser, listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.